Well, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz. I'm excited that you're joining us today. This podcast exists because words matter, and we really believe that your world, our world, can be changed through healthy communication. And so we hope this time will encourage you, challenge you to choose words that bring life and to communicate in healthy ways. So today I'm so excited because we are joined by Tom Goodlet. Thank you so much, Tom, for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Absolutely. Today we're going to dive into this topic of how can we, as leaders, raise up other leaders and specifically look for ways to speak truth into their lives. Speak words that help fuel them to get to that next place that they want to. Yeah. You know, that kind of whole idea. How can we communicate truth to help them, propel them? And so I'm just so excited. We had lunch a couple months ago. Yeah. It was a fantastic lunch. You pulled out napkins, and I mean, you taught me so much. And that, I mean, I still, true story. Sorry to sound like a little fanish here, but I still have those napkins on my desk because I go back to them because I'm like asking myself, questions as we go. So could you just kind of give us the backstory on you, who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff?
Sure. So I'm Tom. I'm Tom Goodlet. So let's start. I love Jesus. We'll start there because that's a big part of my life. I've been in vocational ministry over 20 years, and been married almost. I think we're going on year 19.
Wow!
So I should get that right? So all right. So I think we're going on year 19. I got 3 kids. I got a son in high school, a son in middle school, and a daughter in elementary. So we cart kids a lot of places right now, a lot of different activities, and fun times. So my background would be in ministry. Always have had a passion for leadership, and in ministry, always had vehicles and opportunities to do more and more leadership development, even if it's like my own development, and cherish that, built that in, whether it was in youth ministry, adult ministry. Since then, I am been moving more and more beyond the walls of church buildings. Yeah, and I somehow fell into starting a company that's done pretty well back in 2019. Yeah, so had a book came out, did fairly well, and it kind of started. Had some other people going, hey, could you help me do that? And so we've had Two Penny Publishing, and that's been a company for the last, since 2019, been doing well and growing. I'm at the point too where, I've tried to raise up the leaders within it. So I barely run it. I check in maybe about once a week. Yeah. And there's a CEO and VP and all that and team that they're way smarter than me. They run that. I still own the company, recently launching a new company and also buying another company here coming up in the next 90 days, actually. So fantastic. So a lot of fun things going on. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So just one other question to kind of get to know you a little bit more, because you've been in the publishing world. So if you had to write a book like tomorrow, like I had to, you're up against the wall. You got to write a book. Yeah. Is there what would you write about? Yeah. Is there something that's so on your heart right now? That's
always because books beget books. So I've got I have 4 books that are published and out to the world, and I think you call it a half book maybe because I got a revised edition of one of the popular books that's coming out here. Actually, I think in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And in time for Christmas sales is the idea. So, but yeah, no, I have another. It's not ready to be a book yet, but it's the journey I'm on, and it's something to the effect of being healthy, wealthy, and whole. And the idea that I feel like God's got me on a journey right now where He's definitely challenging me to be healthier, and what does that look like? He's definitely blessed me. I'm definitely at a wealthier point in my life and learning about that. But what's interesting about that is how many scriptures there are that guide us even through that process and what to do and how to look at money in a way, and or those the economy of blessings is how I would say it, and then but in order to look at that, you got to be whole, and there's always parts God is working on us to be more and more like Jesus. So for me, I feel like here's a quick backstory. I went on a 2-month vacation with my family over the summer, which was wonderful. And I came back from that having this idea, God's got me on this journey. It's time for Tom 2.0. And so since from August on, I've been going, okay, healthy, wealthy, and whole. How can I become healthier, wealthier, and holier? Yeah. and who do I need to involve in my life to help me get there. And so I've learned a lot just in the last few months, and on this journey, I'm excited about it. Eventually, it probably turns into a book. But if that's what I had to start writing right now, it would be some of the experiences. Yep,
well,
we're on to something maybe.
Well, I'd get on that book launch team because that that was already exciting. Yeah. Okay, so jumping into the content of this this episode, we're looking at raising up leaders. If you're a leader, you're someone who has influence in your life. Someone has probably poured into you, this process of pouring into others. When did it click for you? Like when, as a leader, when did it click for you that, wow, my life can really mean something even more when I start pouring in, raising up other leaders?
Yeah. Well, I think first we just gotta honestly acknowledge about leadership in general. I like how John Maxwell says leadership is influence. And so we all have influence. So by definition, we're all leading at some level. Yep. And it's just really whether or not you're a bad leader or a good leader, to be honest. Right. I mean, and you talked about, in the beginning that it's truths, how can we pour truths? Well, great leaders pour truths into people. Bad leaders pour lies into people. I mean, you could look at it that way. Yeah. And so we're people are following us whether we want them to or not. It's whether or not we embrace that role of the truth of we are influencing other people, and do we want to influence them well, or do we want to do damage to them as they follow us? And so I had a leader who it was a frustrating relationship, but they were older than me. They were higher on the org chart than I was, and so they would often say, we got two different leadership styles, and getting out from under their grip, I've kind of looked back and realized, no, you just are a bad leader. Like you just, if you look at the trail behind you, there are bodies strewn about and people wounded and trying to get over the lies that have been poured into them. Yep. And I had somebody challenge me to be a great leader no matter where you are in the org chart. Wow. But you asked me the question of when did it realize, and I don't have a defining moment. Yeah. I think this is something that was probably poured into me in some ways by my parents, even growing up. I watched them in ministry. I remember them saying things of, you're always working yourself out of a job, which means then you're raising up other people to take over that job. Yep. Which means there'll also be another job waiting for you to raise up those people so they can do it. And so that always happens. Talking about equipping the saints for service or discipleship, that's the one. The last thing Jesus told us while on this earth, that to go and make disciples and to teach them, and it's leadership development. And so I think I've heard it all my life in a way. Yeah. But the moment I embraced it was probably like most high schoolers had a rebellion in high school, and then kind of coming out of the rebellion, had an opportunity to be a part of leading my peers in a group. And that really pushed me to that, maybe I could use these powers for good, and help people rather than hurt people. I had an opportunity, it was freshman year of college that summer. And I somehow got this. I wasn't a ministry major. I was a communications major. That's television, radio. That's what I'm going to do. But why not? I had a church that could pay part-time for 2 months of the year to have a part-time youth pastor at their church, a little church. And, but it was awesome. And so I was 18 at the time. Like I turned 19 that summer, and I had 18-year-olds in my youth group. Wow. And I'm going, okay, I've got them. What am I going to teach them? Yep. And going, do we start going through the Bible? Do we start going through spiritual gifts? What do we talk about? I don't know. What do we talk about? And my mother's the one who challenged me and said, okay, when in your faith walk to this point have you most been on fire about your faith? And I knew it right away. And it was the time I was leading that group. It called me the time I was inviting people to church. The time, because all of a sudden they'd ask questions, and they were following and asking, and it forced me to get smarter and have to lead. Forced me to embrace the leadership role. Yep. And it was. And I think there's something very meaningful when we embrace that I believe God has called us here to influence people and to make disciples and to lead them. And when we can embrace that and then embrace the challenge of, and I want to do well at that. Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's something very meaningful in that. So those are probably some pivotal times in my life where it started clicking for me and realizing this feels good. This feels meaningful. This feels like it serves a greater purpose. And it leaves a legacy. Yeah. Right. I mean, that's what you want, right?
Absolutely.
You spend your breaths and hours, and at the end of the day, who did you help?
Right.
And I think that's
Right.
way more meaningful.
But going back to what you said when you first started that, it's just so contrary to us at some point, especially younger leaders. Like, why? Wait a minute. Why would I help someone else? I need to be there, And so it's that process of getting there. And I just loved what you just walked us through there.
I could tell you what took away an excuse for me, and this was later on into ministry. This is when I had kind of a bad leader above me, or just somebody who's using bad leadership skills. We can say that. I had another staff member at church who decided for some reason to pour into me, gave me a book called 360 Degree Leader by John Maxwell. And the whole idea of that is that in leadership, a lot of times we think it's pouring down to the people below you, right? As we accept that, the people who are willing to follow you at that level. But leadership's also pouring out across to the people who are on the same place in the org chart or same place in life you are. And great leaders also lead up to the end.
Right.
And so I was like, oh man, that really that took away all my excuse, because my excuse before that is I'll become a better leader when the guy above me becomes a better leader.
Right. Exactly.
And so now it was the challenge of, oh no, I get to decide now, no matter where I am on the org chart, what kind of leader I want to be, and what kind of influence I want to do down, across, and up. And so that was pivotal. And so I decided then, no matter what, I wanted to be a great leader. It didn't matter what anybody around me decided. That was the influence I wanted to leave. That's who I wanted to be, and just embrace. And again, it's simply embracing that truth, and then trying to live up to it or build the skills to it. Yeah. And I would say that too. I think sometimes another thing about leadership is it's really a skill or a subset of skills. Mm-hmm. Which means if it's a subset of skills, then it's learnable. Anybody can learn it. Anybody can get better at it. Sometimes we go, oh, they're a born leader. And typically what we mean is they might have one of those subset of skills that comes a little more naturally to them, but they don't have all of them. Right. And just because it has natural doesn't mean you can't get better. Right. And so really what I've learned is anybody who's willing to learn can become a better and better leader.
Wow. That's fantastic. So how do you approach your relationship with other leaders then? Is your mind already starting to spin when you see someone and you get to know them and you're like, oh, wow, they have some pretty great potential here. Like, walk us through that process, that internal work of going, how do you know, like, when you build that relationship to help push them or, that kind of stuff?
Well, let's start with another truth, and that is not everybody is equally worthy of your time. We only have so much time to give. We have only so much energy to give. And just because somebody says they want your time and want your energy or want you to pour into them doesn't mean they're ready or worthy in a way. Yep. And so I drew up an acrostic several years back when kind of designing one of the books to try to answer the question, well, how do you know if somebody's ready? So the idea, if I'm going to, let's say, coach or mentor somebody, everybody can benefit from coaching or mentoring, somebody pouring into them, but not everybody's ready to receive it. Wow. So you're trying, right? So how do you determine, whether or not somebody, and it takes a lot of listening, which we should talk about more. But I have an acrostic that it shows up in a couple of the books I wrote because it seems to have worked, and it's the acrostic CLEAR. It's not Scientology, but it's stole it from me, I'm sure. But it's how do you make a clear decision? Yeah. Whether or not you want to spend those efforts and that energy pouring into somebody, whether it's worth the time and the energy. And so the C stands for connected, or do I feel a natural connection with them? Or are they easy to talk with? And even in the, this is a easy yes to let's be on this podcast. We connected, right? Yeah. And so you can kind of sense that, feel that okay, we can connect. It's not going to be a pulling teeth to have conversation. The L is learn. Do they have something to learn, and can I teach them? Do I have something to give there? And are they teachable in that? Are they willing to learn? E is excited. Yeah, we are, the way our brains are wired. Sometimes we think we are thinking beings who sometimes feel. We are feeling beings who sometimes think. I mean, that's the way, even you look at the structure of our brain, we always, determining how we feel determines how we think. So it matters that you feel this person, you can sense that they feel excited for this opportunity to hang out with you, meet with you, and then they'll be in a better part of their brain. Well, they'll be better able to learn.
Yeah.
So you got connected, you got learn, you got excited. This one I find I feel it's kind of the do or don't one, and are they authentic?
Oh.
Authentic.
Yeah.
I once had a guy, and I love this guy. He's was a good friend throughout the years, and he asked me one time would I mentor him. And I said, I'll make you a deal. I said, if you can answer me this one question, the answer is yes. And so I just asked him, and I knew him well enough. I said, what is your signature sin? And so it was, I know, it was a fun one.
All right.
And he's looking at me, he's like, what in the world are you talking about? I said, well, and I'm stealing this. I think it might be John Ortberg might have come up with this idea, but the idea that we all have a bent towards something.
Yeah.
We all have something that if Satan wanted to destroy our lives within 5 minutes, this is what he'd use to do that. And so we need that self-awareness, right? And so, and he couldn't come up with one. I knew it right away. I knew exactly what it was. It was, if you just mentioned the word pride, there you go. Yeah, but that was
Right.
it. It's too proud. And so to think that could exist. And I said, well, when you come up with an answer for that, let's talk.
Wow.
And again, I think it would have benefited him, but he wasn't ready. There were too many layers of the onion to peel.
Yep.
And he wasn't ready to. He wasn't being real with himself.
Yeah.
And so then our conversations are going to fall mute in some ways.
Exactly.
We're going to frustrate each other. And so that authentic one is are they real with themselves? Are they self-aware, or at least at this point in their life, are they in a place of self-awareness? And are they authentic? And then the last one are reliable. In other words, if we set something up, if we put something on the calendar, will they show up?
Yeah.
Because then it's not worth your time if they're not
Right.
going to be there. And so, and that matters too. So I continually use that. Now I use it in my head. Do we connect? Are they ready to learn? Do they seem excited? Are they authentic? From what I know, are they being real and honest with themselves? And will they show up if we decide to schedule something, put something together, and to do this? And if it's all of those, then it's a clear yes, in my opinion, that's the kind of person that's ready to receive your
Wow.
time.
Well, that's very helpful. A very clear
Yeah.
approach to as people come. And I find in this season of life, not that I'm near the end or anywhere towards that.
Let's hope not.
But it's just so different, late 40s compared to late 20s, late 30s, where there's just so much. It was it's a lot like a TikTok video I saw the other day of two guys playing ping pong.
Okay.
One was an older seasoned guy, one was a young guy. The older seasoned guy did not move at all. And he just made the young guy go back and forth and back. I mean, it's that I feel like in
I
that
do that
season,
to my boys, by the way. We play ping pong, right?
You got
You
to.
do it. Yeah, you got to keep them moving.
That's
and
right.
It'll be
Because
smart enough
we
to
walked down that path
Yeah.
and been there. And
Yep.
so when you are you're finally mentoring someone or you're raising someone up or either in the workplace or wherever you're at, what have you found some of the best ways to communicate into their lives, to speak into them, to walk us through that process?
I'll say this: the best or the most important part of communication is listening. It's the most neglected.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of times we assume, oh, you want to learn from me, that means you must want to hear me talk. Well, hear me talk and you take notes, kind of thing, and that's where it's going.
Yeah.
And but there's a whole art and skill, and it's a big leadership skill of listening. If you go, the number one complaint about the boss in the American workplace, statistically, the number one complaint about the boss in the American workplace is my boss doesn't, you know what it is? It's listen to me.
Right.
That's it. I mean, the moment I
doesn't
say it,
listen.
you feel
I
it.
know,
You
I
probably
was
think
already
about
there.
it,
I
right?
was like, yeah.
And you did. And probably people are like, yep, that is. How many times have I complained? My boss doesn't listen. If they would just listen to me, if they would just hear me, if they would just do that. But it's often the most neglected. And so a lot of times we might be in a position of leadership, and we think our position is to tell everybody what to do. I was working with a CEO friend of mine who he said it took him, 2 or 3 years to realize that at his staff meetings, he thought his job was to speak for 45 minutes and then let them respond for the next 15. And he realized they don't care if I speak 15 or 5. They want to talk for at least 45.
Right.
And we get way more done when I just listen and to do that.
Right.
But a lot of times we think, oh, I'm the leader, therefore I'm the talker.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
And so to me, it's one of the hardest skills, especially if a lot of times people who see themselves as the leader see themselves
Yep.
as the spotlight holder too. And there's time and place for that.
Yep. For
But
sure.
but it's not 100% of the time.
Right.
And it's probably not as often as they think.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to pour into somebody, if you're going to do that, the biggest piece is being a skilled listener.
Wow.
And there's a lot of skill that can be learned in that. There's a lot of skill that I've continued to and try to learn over the years and put into practice. And I'll say this, a mentor of mine once shared, a problem identified is half solved. So, but the only way you properly identify a problem is by listening.
Right.
And identify. And here's another stat. 85% of the time what people tell you is their problem is not the real problem. There's some layers to peel. So so if you just jump on something they say and start talking and solving, most likely you're not really solving anything because that's not the real problem.
Wow.
And so if you take the time to properly identify it, you're already 50% closer to having it resolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, we talked about bad leaders, bad leadership earlier. I think about unhealthy leaders, and just what you said there, they just have to hold the spotlight all the time.
And I would say too, they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
They've learned bad habits,
Yeah.
and they haven't taken the time to build better habits, and they haven't or better skills. Again, if leadership is a subset of skills, then we can get better at it.
Yeah.
Just sometimes people refuse
Yeah.
to get better at it,
Yeah.
and everybody else pays for that.
Yeah, and I for sure was in that. I mean, I think back to those years, and maybe I'm still in them. I don't know, but I think back to those years where I'm like, yeah, Jason was trying to build his own kingdom and wanted to be the captain of every ship. And I just think back and I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful for the older leaders in my life who gave me grace and patience and helped walk me through those seasons. Yeah. And now I'm grateful for those moments that had to wipe out the legs underneath me to deal with the pride and some of those kind of things.
Well, it matters too how you look at those, doesn't it? And so a phrase my kids are sick of hearing me say, but I say it all the time. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you learn. And so it's not losing, it's not failure unless you give up.
Yeah.
So sometimes the way you thought it should worked, and you learned, wow, that works. Sometimes the way you thought it should work doesn't work, and it's that opportunity to go, okay, why did it not work? What does this problem now make possible?
Wow.
But again, that's a skill because that's not our natural reaction.
Right.
Our natural reaction is to react in a typically a negative way or self-protecting way, and or self-preserving or promoting way, and yet that doesn't, as much as it's self, it doesn't really benefit us. Or the people around us to look out for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking about a couple of your books. One of them was Mentor You.
Yeah.
And you talk about helping leaders kind of, mentoring them to take their next step. And I was just thinking about the companies that are out there, the organizations who just, because of the busyness of everything and their strategic plan and all that, they just put this much effort, just a little tiny effort, into that leadership development, mentoring. And, I think of books like yours where I'm like, oh, if some of these companies could just grab hold of, investing that time into their people, the fruit from that would be huge.
I could tell you statistically that companies that take on average at least a day of training for their employees, like put them in where they're skill building, on average that employee is 218% more profitable for the company.
Just incredible.
The people who invest in their employees, those employees, just even if they do it a little bit. Yeah. I mean, the more you do it, the statistics rise up. But if you just do it a little bit, I've seen your salespeople become somewhere between 20 to 40% better at sales. Wow. We know there's people who invest in the workplace and in those skills and those employees, 37% less absenteeism because people want to show up to a job they like.
Right.
We know that people who micromanage tend to make more mistakes and cause the company more money. Which is ironic because you micromanage them, right? I got to be in it. I have to be in it so they don't make mistakes. But when we put stress and pressure on people, again, we're always feeling. We don't think well, and it typically throws us into the back part of our brain where we make decisions, where we typically know we're functioning in the back part of the brain when we feel anxious, angry, or anemic. We feel drained because your brain's burning more calories than any other organ in your body, and it's especially when you're stressed out, it's burning that. And when we know when we're in the back part of the brain, we're on average 18 less IQ points using. So we're literally dumber. So when we stress out, when you have a bad leader who comes in, and I like what the 1 Minute Manager guy, Ken Blanchard. Yeah, he talks about seagull leadership. where seagull the boss comes over, hovers over you for a while, craps on you, and flies away.
Steals your ice cream cone.
Yeah,
He's out.
and there you are, just miserable. It's like we're literally dumbing our people down by being that kind of leader who comes over and demoralizes people or stresses them out and does that. And now we've actually set them up to meet our expectations even less.
Wow.
And so again, it's skill. There's better skills that work that actually allow your people to perform way better. I mean, if you think about it, let's be honest, the average employee isn't waking up in the morning going, how can I do terrible at my job today? How can I disappoint my boss and upset my organization?
Right.
We wake up going, how can I do great today?
Right.
And a lot of times we have better ideas of how we can do great than the person above us. But a lot of times the person above us who's determining how we're supposed to do our job. And a lot of times they get in the way.
Wow.
And they get in the way of our momentum or what could benefit the organization. Right. But anyway, there's skills to open that up and to do that.
So what holds back, younger leaders, older leaders, really? Yeah. What holds people back from, trying to find a mentor or trying to find that person or on the flip side, being that voice into others? Because I know that there are a lot of people listening who, they could be speaking life into the people generations below them.
Yeah, I think really a lot of times what holds them back is they don't know who to mentor.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that clear thing helps out. They don't know who they should be investing into, and they don't know how, like what to do. And so one of the reasons I wrote that book was just to create a resource to create conversations.
Yeah.
And conversations where the mentor needed to set them up to listen more to the mentee and set them up for great conversations and to do that. So, but I think that's a lot of times the hang up. They don't know where to start, who or how to pull that off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what's a piece of advice you could give to leaders as they look to speak into other people's lives?
Yeah. That would be, make sure you set yourself up where other people are speaking into your life. Oof. So the best mentors are the ones who are being mentored. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a rule of thumb that I try to teach and I try to live by too, that I've always have people who are before me. In other words, they're ahead of me in life and they're pouring into me. I've got people beside me, we're rooting on each other, and I've got people behind me that I'm pouring into. And the thing is too, I would say, I wouldn't just say, I think Dr. Henry Cloud, he talks about this, some other guys, where the idea of it should be lopsided. It should be lopsided that you have more being poured into you, so that what you're pouring out is high quality to others. Wow. But a lot of times what I see is the other way. I see the other way where it's like, I'm pouring into all these people and stuff like that. But what you're pouring into them isn't very good because it's more drain than gain. And so the time and so what you do to make up for it is you give them more time than quality. But your time is limited. And so there's the much better result if you can have a lot more people pouring into you, and then you can give a lot more quality in less time. Yeah. And people will walk away, and it could be an hour lunch rather than a 24-hour whatever.
Right.
So,
wow. Yeah. Whew, that's so helpful. I know I recently picked up your book, Blind Potential. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm in a season right now where, 26 years I served in vocational ministry, and so now I've branched off, started this new company, Speak with People, and podcast and some training and speaking, those kind of things. Yeah. And even in this season, for so long I did, the same kind of job, but even your book, Blind Potential, just thinking about, okay, all right, I know I have it in me, to learn what I need to learn in this new season. Yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you because I know we don't know each other too far, but you have already been mentoring me from afar with your books and writing and, just that kind of stuff. And for sure, like I feel like we just scratched the surface today. So we will be begging you. I probably shouldn't be so eager, but we'll ask again if, in the future, because I would love to dive into, But before we close, maybe a couple of rapid fire questions, just as people kind of keep getting to know you. What book are you currently reading?
I happen to be reading Boundaries for Leaders by Dr. Henry Cloud.
Okay.
But I just finished Astrophysics for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson, because somebody just challenged me to read that book because it's so different than anything I do.
Okay.
And it's amazing how much God, actually you can draw out of that book. But that was a weird book. I was like, yeah, sure. I did it. So I knocked it out. So.
If you're a podcast listener, do you have a favorite podcast?
Obviously, the Speak with People podcast.
All right.
Second to that, the Ron Burgundy podcast. Sometimes you just gotta laugh,
Stay
man.
classy.
And Will Ferrell is ridiculous.
Stay classy.
And so sometimes I just need that break, from
Absolutely.
astrophysics to
Yeah.
Anchorman. So, no, I like that one. I do on the leadership and business end. I do like the Business Made Simple podcast. That's so clean and cut.
Don
and
Miller.
Don
Every
Miller's
episode.
he's worked so hard at putting out a great product.
All right, last rapid fire question. I know we talked about earlier if you had to write a book, but are you currently working on a book?
I am not. I'm currently working on a company. So I've got Two Penny Consulting is kind of currently officially launching. It's the kind of work I've been doing, and I'm about to do more of, and so just kind of finding a home base for it. So there is twopennyconsulting.com, TWO.
Okay.
pennyconsulting.com. And you can go there. And with that, we are doing, again, this is stuff I've been doing, but now we're just doing more of it and focusing and going broader. And we do really three things: training, tracking, and troubleshooting. And so the training that we're doing and teaching and looking to book more in the coming year is training on a course called Leader Effectiveness Training. And so we talked about those listening skills.
Yep.
We spend 2 or 3 days like intense. It's a high-end leadership program. I am working with several companies this year doing that and working with their people to build these high-end leadership skills. A lot of learning those listening skills, a lot of learning those confronting skills and problem-solving skills.
Yep.
And so how do we communicate with each other and building that more and more into the culture? So we do that training. Then we have a tracking system where we go back and we track those executives or those employees and track them 6 months later.
Yeah.
How well are they living those out? And where can we improve and
Yep.
where can we celebrate? And to do that. And so we have a system to do that, and that's can be a part of it as well. And then we meet with those organizations and talk about that and do that. And then this piece we have too is just the troubleshooting, where we can go in, myself specifically, typically, and if there is, we need to work one-on-one with something or
Yep.
somebody or helps work through this problem for the organization,
Yeah.
and we're able to do that and go in and work directly with them and apply all those skills to their specific situation.
Wow. Well, where else can our audience find you online?
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff.
Man. Well, you can go to twopennyconsulting.com.
Yep.
If you're interested in publishing a book, we help you get that book from your heart into your hand. Please check out twopennypublishing.com. That's what we built. I don't know anybody else doing what we're doing. It's a very unique way to go about publishing, but we've got people. We just published somebody's 4th book with us. I mean, like
Wow.
they're happy. Our authors like us. We love them, and it's a great relationship. Actually, we got a book coming out tomorrow. I was just talking to somebody, but yeah, check that out. You can do that too. I mean, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook,
Awesome. Well,
LinkedIn,
we'll go ahead.
all that. Yep.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in the
Yep.
show notes.
Yep.
And just
Yep.
selfishly,
Yeah.
I'm one of those hopefully future authors
Yeah.
of Two Penny. And
Absolutely.
So be sending over the information for the book, Speak with People, Not at Them.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Sometime
Yep.
soon, and
Yep.
we'll be able to do that. Well, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. This was extremely beneficial, extremely helpful. And so thanks for your heart and sharing.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. It was my
Absolutely.
pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us today on the podcast. Again, this podcast exists because words matter, and we really believe that your world, our world, can be changed through healthy communication. And just a few reminders. Don't forget to check out thespeakersconference.com. If you are a leader who regularly delivers presentations or speaks from stages or influences from behind a camera, you want to become a more effective communicator, someone who inspires their audience to lean in, join us March 21 to 23 in Clearwater Beach. It's a really difficult location for a conference, but we have a great speaker lineup. Please head to Speaker Conference. Thank you again for being a part of the podcast. Thanks for sharing, and we will see you next week.